excellence for the collective whole. I think that there's a certain delusional quality that all successful people have to have.
But before you can ever reach anything, you have to believe it. You don't just mistakenly become great at something.
Your destiny, when you identify with your destiny, you have to be maniacal. You have to be uncompromising. It don't matter how much it feel like it ain't gonna work. Delusion. Complete delusion. You gotta believe the delusion. Because it's only delusional until it works.
It doesn't matter if the world believes in you. If we don't believe in ourselves, nothing's gonna happen.
And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibility. You can't have one without the other.
As long as you believe in that very gift that you have in the bottom of yourself, that fire that burns, that dream that wakes you up in the middle of the night, it wakes you up and have you screaming to the sun, rise, so I can go after this dream. That is the very thing that you should chase every single day. And as long as we believe, as long as we know that we have greatness inside of us, we can be anything we want to.
In order for you to manifest your dream, you gotta be the first one that believes in you. Don't worry about what nobody else say, man. Speak life into your dreams.
I do believe that when you walk in a room and you're confident and you stand tall and you believe in yourself, that energy does come off of you.
We generate our power by first believing that our efforts will be rewarded. No matter how many people tell you that you're stupid, you're a failure, that you're never going to do anything, that you are going to believe in yourself.
No matter what nobody told you about your dream, man, stand up for your dream. Stand up for what you believe in and speak what you want into existence.
How much time do you have left? How much time do you have left?
This is what I believe, and I'm willing to die for it. Period.
Let's first believe that you can, that you will, that you must.
Be crazy enough to believe in you.
The madness of impossibility, the lie. Somebody lied to you and told you that it was impossible. And the only difference between people who lose and people who achieve is the person who achieved tried one more time. I'm convinced that we are a generation that gives up too easily. I need you to examine your capacity now. Examine your perspective now. The power is in your perspective. The power, the difference between those who make something happen and those who do not is wrapped in the truth and in the power of their perspective. Your perspective can either become your prison or your passport. It can either arrest you or release you. One of the things I have realized, and many of us have, if you want something out of life, if you want to change yourself, if you want to acquire something, if there's some goal that you want to reach, that is really not easy as some people will make us feel. That living your dream, changing your behaviors, overcoming negative habits, it's challenging. It's hard. What will it take for me to get some of the things that I want? It's very important that you engage in an ongoing process to develop you. Spend more time on yourself than what you've been spending. So decide that you're going to take some time to work on you, that you deserve that from yourself, that your life deserves some prime time, because you are creating your own production. As Michael Todd would say, you are the star of your show, you are the director, you're writing the script, and you will determine whether your life is a smash office hit or flop. You determine that.
No matter how much the world tries to hold you back, always continue to believe that what you want to achieve is possible. You know, believing you can do something successful is the most important step in actually achieving it. You can do and be anything that you want, no matter what you've been told and conditioned to think growing up. Start from today to believe that you can.
I believe possibility is destiny, and it is fear that keeps us arrested and apprehended by the spirit of impossibility. Impossibility doesn't even exist. you shift your reality, once you understand the power of perspective, the word itself says, I'm possible. Every time somebody told me I cannot do something, I had a decision that I had to make in order to achieve what they said was impossible. Don't just let life happen to you. Create the life that you want. One choice, one action, one day at a time, because in the end,
Your life is nothing more than the sum of your choices.
You've got to sell yourself every day on your abilities, on what you're doing, on the goal that you want to reach. You've got to sell yourself every day, every day, every day. Whatever we have right now, whatever we're demonstrating in our lives, is a result of what we believe subconsciously that we deserve. And part of increasing that belief level is that you have got to convince yourself every day. And as you convince you, as you sell yourself every day, you will begin to see a difference in the things that you're doing. Selling yourself on your ability to perform a job, to achieve a certain objective, telling yourself every day, here I go again, and I got what it takes. This is my day, and nothing out here is going to stop me.
You can have that thing that you want, all right? It's yours. It's staring you in the face, right in front of you. But you've got to take it. You've just got to believe it's possible. It's to believe.
Most people go through life never discovering what their talents are. Most people never develop their talents. You have something that you brought to the universe. And that if you decide that my life deserves my developing this what I do well, and becoming the best at it, and mastering myself, and seeing what I have within me, if you decide to drop your buckets where you are and develop your gifts, I grant you, you'll never ever be without. I grant you that your gifts will take you places that will literally amaze you. As you begin to develop and expand your skills and your talents and your vision of yourself, you will always be in control of your destiny.
You got to get up and believe in yourself and tap into your dreams and what you believe in. Don't you ever let anybody stop you from living your dream, man. You deserve to be successful. I speak into existence that you're going to be successful. It all starts in the mindset. I speak into existence that every dream that you have will manifest. And once you get done speaking your dreams into existence, you got to stop talking and you got to go execute your dream.
One characteristic became apparent as a major predictor of success. And it wasn't communication skill. It wasn't emotional intelligence, good looks, or physical health. It wasn't even IQ. It was grit.
To be successful at anything, the truth is you don't have to be special. You just have to be what most people aren't. Consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. No shortcuts, integrity, purpose, determination, and discipline that it takes to be a champion in life.
Grit is about persistence, resilience, and determination. It's about showing up day after day. It's about holding on to your dreams, even when the road ahead looks dark and uncertain.
Grit is passion and perseverance. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, but for years.
It's the most important attribute. It's more important than intelligence. It's more important than domain expertise. That ability to grind through even when you don't see immediate results. Even when it looks like you're going backwards. That ability to stay gritty and grind, that's the difference between winners and losers. You practice piano, practice math, you practice cooking, practice some grit.
Grit is work. Grit is a challenge of a lifetime. Grit is something that many people don't even know how to get through it. It's about winning one-on-one battles. Fight to fight. It's our
I think that's the most underlooked part of Grit is the fact that it needs to be something that you're compelled by. It's got to be like cool and exciting and interesting to you.
We often hear stories of people who succeed seemingly without effort. Those who make it look easy. But what we don't see is the grit behind their success. The countless hours they spend practicing, failing, trying again.
Create a Facebook group message for Pokemon Go PvP players who want to play in a Pick 6 Show 3 format on the EBC platform. Be able to remove admins should be able to remove players from select tournaments, freeing up space if players are non-reactive to the tournaments that they've registered in. Can you pull data from a published website and to save its data from losing its data?
And I find that incredibly satisfying in the trenches of misery when you have to go through it. Hard work is the goal. And so it's not like work hard so that X. Because as soon as you have a so that, then the X is the thing. But if the goal is to work as hard as you possibly can, then the only real output we have is who we become along the way. Then
In the admin, moderator, referee control panel, have a date selected to pre-register or predate a tournament so we can get players anticipating on the date to start the tournament. So we just need to add a drop-down menu of the date to select and the year and month.
And I think the reality is that most people, to get not anxious about whatever they're doing, you have to do it so many times that by the last time you're doing it, you're bored of it. Like, you don't even want to see the thing again. When you're sick of it, it's the point where you'll have no adrenal response to the stimulus because you've seen it so many times. You could do it in your sleep because you hate it at this point. And if we think of confidence as the percentage likelihood what we think is going to happen will happen, it's a predictive metric, then in order to be more confident, we want to have more proof that what we think will happen will happen. And so the easiest way to do that is to do it a lot of times. And so it would be reasonable to say that you're confident that it will go the way you want because it has gone the way you've wanted. The leading indicator of a successful person is the ability to act without anything happening. And when you continue down that path, it happens slower than you expect and then faster than you can imagine. And I think that's the part that everyone misses is they expect the faster than they can imagine and they imagine really big. And so then their expectations are really big, really fast, but they take the intensity and they don't apply it to a timeline that's appropriate. The path of personal development is befriending uncertainty.
It's Dollar Tree summer at McDonald's. Sip on a refreshing small fountain drink or a small iced coffee for just $1 each plus tops. All summer long. Only at McDonald's. Experience flavored and iced coffees at participating Canadian restaurants. Taxes extra. Prices exclusion.
This is TechCrunch.
This is not the future we were promised. I can tell that out from TechCrunch.
For the BBC, this is The Interface, the show that explores how tech is rewiring your thinking and your world.
This isn't about quarterly earnings or about tech reviews.
It's about what technology is actually doing to your work, your politics, your everyday life.
And all the bizarre
less and less likely to listen to someone who does not have third-party proof that's as demonstratable. That's how I'll explain it. So this middle tier here would be what I would consider a kind of B2 prosumer. All right, so this is kind of where you get into your money stuff. So we look at, we talk about savings and investing money. That's like, is there certainly more risk to what you do with your savings and your money and investing than lashes and your hair, maybe with a diet? Ask most people. The answer probably would be yes, right? So if you look at some of the top figures in the space, let's think of some. So you've got like Erica taught me, who's done an awesome job. Now, why do people listen to her? Because she talks about how to like make disputes and ask for refunds. It's all about money. What is she? She's an attorney, right? She has more real world credibility. What's another example? Vivian too. So she's someone who came from finance, and so she has that credibility as been on Wall Street, etc. And so she's leveraged that. She talks about saving, investing, and stuff. You think about like Dave Ramsey, right? He obviously has big business success, which is a big overlay on this, and he's been doing this for a really long time. So for each of these people, there's a little bit more proof that's required. Now, are there people who are making content in the space that have zero proof? Maybe. Are they the biggest? No. Why? Because listening to their advice is riskier than listening to someone who has some visible proof.
Hey guys, real quick, many of you guys are getting started in business and don't know, but other entrepreneurs have already tried to help. And so 3.6 million copies were donated by other entrepreneurs about Book Launch, and I'm donating these books as well. And so if you're starting in business like Equals, this is the backpack. All 3 books. This one shows you how to figure out what to sell. This shows you how to get people to find out about it. And this one shows you how to make money from it. When you have all 3, you can actually get started. All right. On top of that, you have 30 days of school that you can get absolutely free. And all of this, including the books, including school, including shipping, is 16 bucks. Yeah. Like, we lose money. So go grab it. It's the ultimate thing I can give you. My gift. Enjoy. If you go there and it's shut down, it's because we're ran out. But as long as the link still works, it works. So, as we move along the continuum, we have our B2B creators, right? And so I would consider myself in this category. For a lot of my content, it's included. I started this video by saying that we have over 20 million plus subscribers, followers, etc. across the platform because I have to give some credibility to what I'm saying, right? Now, me giving credibility around that, an AI can totally replicate. Because if an AI has a lot of followers, for example, then that AI would be able to talk about it when we have about it. That all makes sense. Now, if an AI is saying, hey, do this thing in your business, until there are AIs that have built gigantic companies that no human was involved in, then the likelihood that the AI will have the ability to gain the trust of the audience so that they listen to the advice goes down. Right? And so like, why do we actually care about proof or demonstration in general? Right? Well, we take it as a signal to decrease our own personal risk. And so if you have 2 people that you're listening to, one person that just GPT'd, hey, this is 6 things you need to do to scale your sales team, never sold anything in their life, never built a sales team, versus somebody who's built 10 sales teams and says, here are 6 things that you need to do. If the content was the same, which one of these 2 people do you think would have significantly larger followings? This one. Why? Because people can actually believe it. They're actually willing to take action on it because they say, okay, this guy probably knows what he's talking about because he's done this in the real world. Now, there is a little bit of chicken egg of the 6 things this guy comes up with versus the 6 things this guy's come up with. These ones will probably be a little bit better because he has in the trenches knowledge, so there's a little bit of chicken egg. But assuming the information is literally identical, the person who has the most credibility wins, and not just by a little bit, by a lot of it. Like, why is Elon the #1 business influence in the world? Because he's the richest man in the world, right? And so it will be increasingly difficult for AI to create the proof required for B2B and higher risk types of content. And so when we think about this, you're like, how do I make my brand or build my brand in a world where AI can duplicate anything? Well, we have to focus on proof. We have to focus on demonstration. And if we're looking at this continuum, the more you're this way, probably the safer you are, at least in the short to medium term. Underneath of that, we get the next question, which is, okay, if that is indeed the case, what do I need to do in order to create content at scale that can compete with AI? Well, it's going to come down to how can I do demonstration at scale? How can I provide proof at scale in real time? For sure, it's great to have accomplishments. Accomplishments you can mention, right? You can say that one time, people can know that you sold a company or you're scaled or you're doing $250 million a year in revenue, whatever it is, right? You can have that.
incredibly difficult to fake, right? Now, is there a world in the future where AI can take calls? Absolutely. It's probably a year or two away. It's not even that far. Maybe by the end of this year. But so what are you going to do today, like watching this video? Well, I'm going to give you a couple things that have worked really well for me. So number one is, instead of saying, hey, of course you want to do epic shit and then document it and then do more epic shit and then document it. That's no question. That would be more of a content creation method. So it's like you look at your calendar, you look at all your meetings, you put a plug in for each of the meetings because you do them virtually, so you transcribe them. Then you say, hey AI, tell me the interesting moments from these meetings, and then you can talk about them. So rather than you making up stories, you actually give real examples, right? That is further along this proof to risk spectrum. So that's a good thing. But is there something that's even better than that? And I think there is, which is there a way that you can engineer within your existing business motion, which is how do you service customers, whatever it is that you sell, that you can bake in components of truth? So how would that work? Well, if I were selling hair extensions, I would probably have sweepstakes lottery tickets inside of the hair, which then creates a marketing motion that I can put around it, which why not? Then the winners, I can call in person to come to my salons where I can install them for them. And then all of a sudden I've got this beautiful loop, a self-licking ice cream cone, if you call, I sell, customers come in, they buy products, those products generate marketing, that marketing gets more customers, those customers buy more products, and around we go. That is a self-licking ice cream cone. And you want to install it in every business you have, especially in light of AI where proof is going to matter more than anything else. If you're in a B2B setting, it works the same way. Now if you're like, oh, well, this doesn't work for my business. You're not going to make it. I don't know what to say. Like, if you can't think, how can I engineer a way for me to interact with my customers so that we can demonstrate the value of the products that we have in a real way, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm trying to think of like the most basic, version of this. It's like all consumer products are really straightforward. Like literally use the product. That's that simple, right? On the B2B side, it's going to be more around the proof that you can demonstrate around, let's say you're a marketing agency. Okay, bring someone in, walk through the campaign, bring the customer in, and show it, right? Even if you're a small agency, do it with all your customers. Why not, right? And worst case scenario, you make a marketing motion that's, let's say you only have 10 customers. Okay, start doing these audits for people for free and document them. That's the trade. Hey, let me do a whole bunch of work for free. I'll document it, and I'll just give it away. Who says no? Right? The big point here, zooming all the way out, is that AI is going to disrupt disproportionately the lowest risk to the higher risk people in that work. To protect yourself, you want to do things that AI will be more difficult for AI to do. Now, is there a world where AI can literally do everything? Probably. Are we there yet? No. And so in the meantime, what do? You win with what you got, right? Which is you demonstrate our expertise and the quality of our products and services in front of people, ideally to our customers, which we document. And if you don't have enough customers to do it, you do it for everybody else. That's the game that I think is going to keep you ahead of the pack of AI, GPT, avatar-driven content, because the proof is going to be in the pudding, and you want to make sure that you get your first win in. I talk publicly about my whole content strategy is live and interactive. That's what I'm doing. I'm showing you my clients, telling you what I'm doing. All right, and so there's two types of content that you'll be seeing more and more of, and I'm trying to engineer more and more components of this into my existing business so that I can document while I deliver, so that it's
allow players to remove themselves from a tournament in the player profile if they want to.
And so if you're thinking to you, it's like, well, like if you have to sit down to actively record every single thing and you want to make 20 pieces, 50 pieces of content, you're doing nothing but stand in front of the camera. Right? But if you do what you like doing, like for me, I love doing Q&As with business owners. It's a lot of, I've had a lot of reps with it, and I just like, it fills me up, right? And so in person, when we have events, if I have time, I go downstairs and I take questions. I can't do it all the time, but whenever there is an event that's happening and if I have a blank calendar, I'm going to try and get down there, right? If I do, like today when I do reporting, I'm going to take calls from people who are in our new launch, $1 million plus community for business owners, right? And so all of this is like, how can I feed the proof machine? Proof is both the third party, these things have happened, that's the big exits, the revenue, all that, like headcount, whatever, I've listed many companies. And then there's the demonstration side of it, which is, can I see this person use their expertise in real life? Now, to be clear, this is hardcore more along the services side. but you can still do a demonstration with products. You just physically demonstrate them rather than using your hands like we showed us. And so hopefully that gives you at least a handful of ideas to think of, like, not just, oh, well, I just sit in front of a computer all day, there's no way I can, like, document what I'm doing. It's like, yeah, you got to create the opportunity, no shit. And so hold a sweepstakes, hold a very limited thing where you email your whole list and say, hey, or you just take the 10 customers or 5 customers you got right now, go to their houses. Like, of course there's a way to do it. It just takes work, but you said you wanted to win, so welcome to the game.
Welcome to Huberman Lab Essentials, where we revisit past episodes for the most potent and actionable science-based tools for mental health, physical health, and performance. I'm Andrew Huberman, and I'm a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. And now for my discussion with Dr. Nolan Williams. Thanks for joining today. I'm excited to have this conversation. I have a lot of questions about different compounds.
Let's start removing the use of demo player accounts, the demo fill draft slots, view completed draft fill, the view simulated draft tournament, and view simulated non-draft tournament from the login page.
Cancer, we actually have a fairly limited number of tools to approach depression, and yet the number of tools in the landscape of those tools is growing.
Depression is the most disabling condition worldwide. What's interesting about depression is it's both a risk factor for other illnesses, and it makes other medical and psychiatric illnesses worse, right? So recently the American Heart Association added depression as the 4th major risk factor for coronary artery disease, right? So alongside the risk factors that we know, hypertension, high blood pressure, hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, and diabetes, high blood sugar, those 3 have been on the list for a long time, and depression being added to the list is the 4th one. A lot of what we're doing in the lab actually is measuring kind of brain-heart connections.
Remove account role from the login screen.
Brain stimulation, we can actually decelerate the heart rate and capture that heart rate deceleration over the mood regulatory regions. And so actually a direct probe of that connection. We've been very interested in a very particular clinical set of problems around the most severe and the most high acuity settings that folks with depression end up being in, and that's in emergency settings where they go into inpatient units. The field really hasn't developed a way of consistently being able to treat that problem. Folks end up getting the same standard oral antidepressants that they've been getting outpatient. And I came to this because I've dual trained as a neurologist and psychiatrist, went back and forth between neurology and psychiatry, saw that in neurology we have all of these ways of treating acute brain-based problems, and really wanted to emulate
Be able to share different events being hosted on the Find Events page, so we could send that over to social media to generate a URL or some sort of link towards the tournament.
The first place where the stimulation goes is called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It's kind of the sense of control, kind of governor of the brain. And then what we know is that when you use a magnet, kind of what we call Faraday's law, this idea of using a magnetic pulse to induce an electrical current in electrically conducting substances. So in this case, brain tissue, but not skull or scalp or any of that, or hair. TMS approaches, a rapid 5-day approach, and the next week come in and see them, and they'll say, you know what I did all weekend is I looked at my therapy books and now I can understand it. And so, I actually see TMS as a way of having kind of exogenous sorts of cognitive functions that in milder forms of depression we can pull off in psychotherapy. This idea of being able to kind of turn that prefrontal cortex on and have it govern these deeper regions. In depression, the deeper regions govern the prefrontal cortex.
In one case, it's like the coach telling the player what to do.
Exactly.
It's like the player telling the coach what to do.
That's right.
Restore order to the game.
You restore order to the game. And what it looks like is depression is a bunch of kind of spontaneous content that's semi-volitional, that's being kind of generated out of this conflict detection system, cingulate. In depression, it looks like the left dorsolateral does not sufficiently clamp down on it. And what therapy appears to do is to kind of restore that. What we see with TMS over that region is we just exogenously do the same sort of thing. We restore the governance of the left dorsolateral over the cingulate area, and that is correlated with treatment improvement. So
What is the login credentials for Andy Ace Administrator?
Regulate in time the left dorsolateral over the cingulate, the more of an antidepressant effect you have. TMS is almost like exercise for the brain, right? You're kind of exercising this region over and over again with a physiologically relevant signal and kind of turning that system on. And what's interesting for this show is we had a couple of folks, probably 5 or 6 folks that have actually told me this, where if they remit early enough in the week, we have this very dense stimulation approach where we can stimulate people really rapidly over a 5-day block. By Wednesday, they're like totally.
Apparently, this weekend is a family day parade thing here. Yeah. And every year, I'm told, you should come. You should come out. Oh, you're like down the street. Oh. So they have barbecues, they bring vintage buses. I do think they have rides sometimes. But I don't belong here. Not on a day off. So, oh, they even tried to get me to volunteer. Wild. Quite wild.
Scales, even better than most people walking around, like really no anxiety, no depression or anything. By Thursday, the first guy that told me this, he came in and he said, I was driving back to my hotel and I decided to go to the beach and I just sat there and I was totally present in the present moment for an hour. And he's like, I read about this in my mindfulness books, but I experienced it last night and I've never experienced anything like this before. And I was like, that's interesting, but kind of wasn't sure. And then I didn't tell any, obviously more patients about that. And then about 5 over the last couple of years, they remit early in the week. By the end of the week, they're like going to the beach and they're like totally having what people describe as a pretty mindful, present moment sort of experience, which is really interesting, what that is. I mean, I don't have full-on scientific data to tell you, but it's an interesting anecdote, right? That folks, when you push them through this point of feeling kind of clinically well, that some people end up reporting this additional set of features.
I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge our sponsor, Function. Function provides over 160 advanced lab tests to give you a clear snapshot of your bodily health. This snapshot gives you insights into your heart health, your hormone health, autoimmune function, nutrient levels, and much more. They've also recently added access to advanced MRI and CT scans. Function not only provides testing of over 160 biomarkers key to your physical and mental health, it also analyzes these results and provides recommendations for improving your health from top doctors. For example, in a recent test with Function, I learned that some of my blood lipids were slightly out of range. As a result, I decided to start supplementing with nattokinase, which can naturally help reduce LDL cholesterol. And it did. In a follow-up test, I could confirm that this strategy worked. My blood lipids are now back exactly where I want them. Comprehensive lab testing of the sort that Function offers is just so important for health. I mean, how else are you going to know what's going on under the hood? And while I've been doing blood work for years, it used to be time-consuming, complicated, and expensive. In fact, I used to spend thousands of dollars per year trying to get this kind of data, and the data, frankly, were not all that good. But now with Function, it's extremely easy and affordable. A Function membership is only $1 a day, $365 a year, for a $50 credit towards your membership. Again, that's functionhealth.com/Huberman. I want to make sure that before we dive into ketamine and psilocybin, that we do touch on SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, because we can't really have a discussion about depression without talking about SSRIs. My understanding is that the SSRIs are powerfully effective for certain forms of obsessive compulsive disorder, and may also be effective for treatment of depression. Is that right? And how should we think about SSRIs? Are they useful? Are they not useful?
SSRIs clearly work. Many meta-analyses kind of proving that out, right? That in a subpopulation of individuals, they achieve great benefit for depression, for obsessive compulsive disorder, for generalized anxiety disorder, panic, all these things. You can see an improvement in those symptoms with what we call SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. The issue is that they don't work immediately, right? So they don't work like the same day you start taking them. And that suggests that probably it's not exactly the serotonin being in there that's directly driving it, that it's much more likely that it may have some brain plasticity effects, right? There's not a deficit of serotonin. You're not born with what people call a chemical imbalance. And psychiatry's known this. This is not actually new information to anybody. It's kind of a rehashing of a bunch of information we've known for a while now, but in the lay press, it's kind of hit in a way that it didn't seem to grab attention before with previous publications. But this idea that this chemical imbalance idea is wrong, I really think that part's important, because I think that what I'll call psychiatry 1.0, right, this kind of idea of Freud and psychotherapy and its origins, it was a lot around your family and those experiences, and psychotherapy kind of going in and correcting or helping you to figure out, or show you being able to see, or people hear you so that you can eventually come to the conclusion of certain cognitions that aren't helping you, right? Things like the schizophrenogenic mother and all of that, that was a concept at some point, right? And so we've transitioned from that to the, for a long time, the chemical imbalance, which I'll call psychiatry 2.0, this idea that there's something chemically missing. The trouble there for a patient, right, is that it's sending a message of there's something missing with me, whether it be my experiences I had no control over when I was a child, or a chemical in my brain. What I think is really powerful with TMS, really powerful with TMS, and a level even powerful with the psychedelic story, is it's saying something different. TMS works, and there's no serotonin coming in or out of the brain, right? And we're doing a rapid form of TMS that works in 1 to 5 days. So it's very unlikely that there's some long-term kind of upregulation of serotonin that's driving that. So our work actually kind of pushes back on this serotonin hypothesis as being kind of the center of depression, because it says, look, we're not giving anybody any serotonin. We're simply turning these brain regions on, and we're focused on the circuitry. And that's psychiatry 3.0. It's not just like neuromodulation. Neuromodulation is a really nice, use case for psychiatry 3.0, because it's a way to focally and directly perturb brain regions in whatever modality you're using. But there are a lot of groups that are actually doing neuroimaging before and after, and they're able to see circuit level changes for something like psilocybin or ketamine long after the drug is gone. Right, suggesting in those same.
I am not able to log into the anti-ACE username with its current password. Can we look into that?
Stanford neuromodulation therapy technique. It's that same set of brain regions that ketamine and psilocybin seem to act on, these connections between brain networks that seem to shift. so it refocuses the story on something that's highly correctable, and it's basically electrophysiology, and it's basically kind of recalibrating a circuit that is recalibratable, instead of I have something missing or I have some set of experiences early in life that are going to forever trap me in these psychiatric diagnoses. And so it kind of challenges that idea, and I think that's what's so powerful about Psychiatry 3.0, this idea of focusing on the circuit, because it gets us into thinking about psychiatry and psychiatric illnesses as something that are recoverable. People can get better. People, we've seen with our TMS techniques, we've seen it with some of the psychedelic work that we've done, where people are actually in normal levels of mood for sustained periods of time, or
within 5 days.
Within 5 or less days, and in the case of the psychedelics, within a few days, right? So we can get people out of these states. They're totally well. There's no drug in their system at that point. In the case of psychedelics, there was never a drug in their system in the case of TMS. And it just tells us that it's fixable. It's just like an arrhythmia in the heart. It's like a broken leg. We can go in and do something, and we can get somebody better. And I think what's empowering, and what a lot of patients have told me, is they say, I've gotten to, some people will relapse and need more stimulation or need more psychedelics or whatever it is, but they'll tell me, I don't fear that I'm chronically broken. I don't fear that the chemical imbalance is still imbalanced. I don't fear that these things that I couldn't control in my childhood, are going to be there and drive this problem forever. And I think that's what's so powerful about this.
And that brings me to this question about psychedelics and the, frankly, the altered thinking and perception that occurs in high-dose psilocybin clinical sessions. Many people do report improvements in trauma-related symptomology and depression, as I understand it, from my read of the clinical trials, taking psilocybin, because during those sessions, something comes to mind spontaneously that they will report, for instance, a new way of seeing the old problem.
That's
and
right.
The old problem could be the voice that they're no good, nothing will ever work out, or could be even more subtle than that. Why do you think the brain would ever hold on to rules that don't serve us well?
I think it's an evolutionary neurobiology answer, right? I think that we end up being a result of probably a lot of biology that's not that useful in the modern era. And I think in the brain for say, let's say PTSD, right? A lot of veterans come back and they experience these PTSD symptoms. They're not at all useful back home, right? They hear some loud noise and all of a sudden they're behind a car, or they're behind a, I've heard of folks jump and run behind a trash can or whatever in the middle of San Francisco when they hear a loud noise. But if you put them back in the battlefield, that's highly adaptive, right? We hold on to those things from, I think, an evolutionary neurobiology standpoint. But what seems to, for whatever reason, kind of alleviate that are these substances, some new, like MDMA, some that have been around for thousands of years, like psilocybin, seem to have a therapeutic effect that seems to be pretty long-lasting for these phenomenon. And so it's just curious, right? It's curious that in the absence of that, these things will keep going on, but in the presence of that exposure, then all of a sudden you see a resolution of the problem. We have some work now, we're treating folks with Navy SEALs. The anecdotes that we're getting, right, are folks who are coming back and they're saying these set of PTSD symptoms are finally gone. And so this idea that for whatever reason, going into what's probably a highly plastic state and re-experience memories, and then, as we reconsolidating it in that state, for whatever reason, may drive a therapeutic effect. My business is to find treatments that help people, and so I'm much more like pragmatic about it. If this sort of thing, which has a lot of cultural baggage, but if this sort of thing ultimately ends up being therapeutic, if we can design trials that convince me and others that it is, then we should absolutely use it. And if it doesn't, then we clearly shouldn't use it, right? The work that's been done so far, the first psilocybin trial, the first MDMA trial was published in Nature Medicine recently.
And what do those generally say? Let's start with psilocybin and MDMA.
So MDMA appears to, in 1 to a few MDMA sessions, have an anti-PTSD effect that seems to be outside of the kind of standard assumed levels of PTSD improvement that you can observe in individuals with this level of PTSD, right? So
does that mean that for people that have trauma, who do and again we're talking about in a clinical setting, they take 1 or 2 doses of MDMA. I think the standard MAPS dose is 150 to 170.
I am not able to log into the administrator. Can we make the A Macedo 24 the administrator?
Broadly speaking, what percentage of people who had trauma report feeling significant relief from their trauma afterward?
It's about 2/3 of people had a clinically significant change in their PTSD.
That's impressive. And how long lasting was that?
It appears to last for a while. In the earlier trials where they followed people out, it seemed to last for kind of in the years range for some people, and so it's pretty compelling. In contrast that with ketamine, which only on average lasts about a week and a half for a single infusion, so it's a much shorter.
So they have to get repeated infusions of ketamine every 10 days or so?
For some people, or they end up getting like a bunch of doses for a couple of weeks, and then for some people that seems to last a while. That's where I think the psilocybin story for depression and the MDMA story for PTSD seem more interesting to me.
So for psilocybin, what is the rough percentages on? And this would be relief not from trauma but from depression.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in open label studies, it's closer to like half to 2/3 of people end up getting better depending upon their level of treatment resistance. In the blinded trials, it was more like a 1/3 or so of people.
I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge our sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers professional therapy with a licensed therapist carried out entirely online. I've been doing therapy for a long time, and I can tell you that it's a lot like physical workouts. There are times when I want to do it, and there are times when I don't want to do it. But whenever I finish a therapy session, I come away feeling better, and I have specific actionable items that hadn't occurred to me that when I implement, improve various aspects of my life. The data tell us that there are just so many benefits that come through effective therapy. And effective therapy involves having good rapport with your therapist, getting insights from them and with them, and coming away with specific actionable tools that you can apply outside of therapy. With BetterHelp, they make it very easy to find an expert therapist who can help provide those benefits that come through effective therapy. They have a short questionnaire to help match you to a therapist, and while BetterHelp has an industry-leading match rate, if you aren't happy with your match, you can switch to a different therapist at any time. Also, because BetterHelp is done entirely online, it's extremely efficient. There's no driving to a therapist's office, looking for parking, or anything like that. You simply log on and do your session wherever you happen to be. If you would like to try BetterHelp, go to betterhelp.com/Huberman to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/Huberman. Since you mentioned psilocybin, let's talk a little bit about the neurochemistry of psilocybin. What's going on when one takes psilocybin, and why is it interesting in light of depression?
Yeah, definitely. So David Nutt and Robin Carhart-Harris's work around neuroimaging psychedelics are kind of some of the first folks to do that work, and and to their great surprise, they thought there was going to be an increase in activity on psychedelics, and what they found is the opposite, right? There's kind of an overall decrease in the level of activity in the brain with psychedelics, but they've also looked at connectivity, and there's this kind of small world, large world connectivity that you think about, and so small world meaning there's kind of a much more kind of focused kind of cortical function or subcortical function or whatever it is, and what you see is a difference in that level of engagement of brain regions. The connectivity, kind of global connectivity, kind of increases, and so it's interesting. I think to kind of have a convergent theory on this, it's still to be determined. There's still a lot of work I think that needs to be done, but it's certainly suggestive that there's pretty profound changes in brain activity and brain connectivity after. And what we've found to be really interesting is the antidepressant effects of psilocybin have a particular connectivity change that we also see with our TMS approaches, right? And it's this connectivity between the subgenual anterior cingulate and the default mode network. And so when we do this effective Stanford neuromodulation therapy stimulation, we see a downregulation, like connectivity between the negatively valenced mood state in the case of depressed individuals and the self-representation of the
be fair, the only cool thing that they have is they bring in some like famous food trucks on top of their like barbecue and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna see people that I probably don't want to see. Like, yeah, just now I just saw somebody I didn't want to see because
brain, and you see that same
I left the garage late to start my walk. So yeah.
Activity change occur post psilocybin.
To be fair, the only cool thing that they have is they bring in some like famous food trucks on top of their like barbecue and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna see people that I probably don't want to see. Like, yeah, just now I just saw somebody I didn't want to see because I left the garage late to start my walk. So yeah.
Suggesting there's a convergent mechanism, and it makes sense, right? You've kind of got an over-connected, negatively valenced system, conflict system that's kind of attached onto the self-representation, and people feel stuck, right? And then when you do whatever you do that's effective, it unpairs those two systems.
I want to ask you about Ibogaine. Is it legal in the U.S. in terms as a clinical tool? Who's using it and for what purposes?
Ibogaine is one of the alkaloids that you can extract from a iboga tree root bark that's typically growing in the country of Gabon, Africa. So what individuals taking Ibogaine will say is that open eyes, they don't see anything, but closed eyes, they'll go back through and re-experience earlier life memories, and they will be able to experience it from a place of empathy, not only for themselves, but from others, and come to detached empathy and being able to see this as almost a third party, even though they were there. Ibogaine is in no way a recreational substance. You're essentially having this, what they call a life review. They also call it 10 years of psychotherapy in a night. So these are the terminology that people talk about.
How long does it last? Is it truly one night?
Depending upon how fast you metabolize it, sometimes 24, sometimes 36 hours, sometimes it can be shorter, but it is a long time. It's a very long time. So it's definitely the longest acting psychedelic substance I know of. And so, we have over the last couple of years been able to do this first in human kind of full neurobiology.
Do you even know me? You should be social for a minute. Nah. They won't be there with their family like, oh, leave my water off him. And then I gotta like fake smile while the sun is beating on my face. Yeah, no. Sounds like a nightmare actually. Jeez.
Logical, clinical, neurocognitive evaluation of what Ibogaine is doing. In this case, in special operations, special forces individuals, former Navy SEALs, former Army Rangers, that kind of crew folks, and look at the pre-post changes that that they're experienced, to be able to totally quantitate all of that. So we've been able to capture all the clinical scales, depression scales, PTSD scales, all that standard stuff. Neurocognitive batteries, so how does your executive function work specifically, how does your verbal memory, all of that. And then neuroimaging and EEG. So this will be the first human study of Ibogaine for those. And the reason why is because Ibogaine's kind of both seemingly the most potent and most, seemingly to me at least, most powerful psychedelic, but the one that has the most risk too, because it has a cardiac effect. It seems to be that you can screen people out that have risk off of their electrocardiogram and reduce the risk quite a bit, and that's what we all did. But that's why people haven't really studied it as much, and it isn't as. In addition, there's nobody goes to a rave on Ibogaine. There's no recreation at all with it.
It's not fun.
People say that it's relieving, but it's hard work, right? Because you're re-examining things. So then we see these folks after, and I'll tell you, we haven't fully analyzed the data yet, but I'll tell you that from what my folks are telling me, it's pretty dramatic. People come back and they're doing a lot better. Soldiers experience something called moral injury, right? Where maybe they accidentally blew something up and it had a kid in it or something like that. If they're in Afghanistan or Iraq, maybe child died on accident, or maybe a civilian died, or whatever it was, right? And they suffer these moral injuries as part of the job, and it's almost one of the kind of vocational risks. They come back and say that they've forgiven themselves, which is huge, right? And part of that is being able to see themselves in a different light and having empathy finally for themselves and being able to kind of have that experience of forgiving. And so there's this kind of Timothy Leary kind of socio-cultural construct that ends up being overlaid over psychedelics. And what I think is that if you rid yourself of all of those preconceived notions of what it is and isn't, and the counterculture movement, all that stuff that neither of us were ever involved in, neither of us are ever partake in, as just kind of straight scientists looking at this, right? If you can kind of rid yourself of all those socio-cultural constructions and then re-examine this, if we just discovered these today, we would say that these sorts of drugs are a huge breakthrough in psychiatry because they allow for us to do a lot of the sorts of things we've been thinking about with SSRIs, with psychotherapy, but kind of combined, right? Psychotherapy plus drugs in a substance that kind of allows you to re-examine these things. And so it's interesting. There's a lot to do to try to figure out if that's true, and I can say that as it stands right now, we don't know if that statement is true, right? There's a lot more work that needs to happen for that statement to be proven to be true. But the hypothesis is, if it is true, then it's very likely that this will be seen as a breakthrough because it allows you to do these sorts of things that you can't do with normal waking consciousness. But also why we have to really think about this, and these drugs can't be recreational drugs. They really shouldn't be recreational drugs, right? They're really too powerful to be used in the context of recreation because they can put you into these states. And this generation of psychedelic researchers are really clear about that. I think the 60s folks were not clear about that, and they felt like there was this whole kind of cultural thing that was going on there. But I think this cohort of individuals really understands that in order to really make this happen, we have to understand that if you need a prescription for an SSRI, which doesn't change your consciousness a whole lot, and we're very worried about that, the doctor has to evaluate you for that every week, that the idea that some of these substances would go outside of very strict medical supervision is it's kind of preposterous, actually. It's kind of a dumb moment, I think, for all of medicine to say, look, if we're going to do this right, we've got to do it in such a way that's so protected, so safe, that we make sure people know these things are not recreational and they're really for the pure purposes of really powerfully changing cognition for a while and letting people have these what seem to be relatively therapeutic states.
Tell me about ayahuasca and the plant. Is it useful for the same sorts of conditions that we've talked about thus far? And if you could perhaps tell me a little bit also about the Brazilian prisoner study.
Yeah, definitely. Ayahuasca is another psychedelic. It's used as a sacrament in Brazil and in Peru and Ecuador and Colombia, so a lot of the South American countries. And what they do is they combine two plants together, where one plant of the two plant combination would effectively do nothing, but the two plant combination together is capable of producing this very profound psychedelic effect. And what's really kind of curious is that there are, as I understand it, 10 to 20,000 plant species in the Amazon, and somehow somebody
tried them all.
Combined these two plants together in certain proportionality and cooked this for 5-10 hours to the point where you cook out the dimethyltryptamine out of one of the plants and cook out the reversible monoamine oxidase inhibitor out of the other plant in such a way that the reversible monoamine oxidase inhibitor prevents the GI breakdown of the dimethyltryptamine in such a way that it's then allowed to cross the blood-brain barrier and get into the brain. And if you didn't add the reversible monoamine oxidase inhibitor plant-derived into this combination, then it would never cross the brain. If if you put people on a standard psychiatry prescribed monoamine oxidase inhibitor that wasn't reversible, you'd throw them into serotonin syndrome, right? So this kind of like sweet spot that somehow ayahuasca practitioners have found, being able to get DMT into the brain from an oral source with this combination of a monoamine oxidase inhibitor is curious. And so that substance has been explored as an antidepressant agent, and some studies have looked at that. It also seems to be very safe. There was a psychiatrist down at UCLA Harbor who's done a lot of work with this, where he's looked at children even that have been exposed just to kind of small doses of ayahuasca as kind of a sacrament within Amazonian tribes, and found no neurocognitive effects in adults. And so it appears to be safe. It's kind of part and brought into various religions, including kind of merged with Catholicism in South America, which is kind of very interesting. And so, in some sects of Catholicism in Brazil, it's used as a sacrament during religious ceremonies. And so it became interesting to Brazilian researchers as to whether or not they could affect recidivism rates for prisoners in Brazilian prisons, right? So they gave half of the prisoners, some sort of inert substance, and half of the prisoners an ayahuasca session, and the recidivism rate, or the return to prison rate in the ayahuasca exposed individuals was statistically significantly lower than the recidivism rate in the control group, suggesting that whatever is going on there seems to have an effect on whatever drives criminal behavior, whatever criminal behavior that happened to be. And I don't have the details on the exact nature of the crime. I am also in no way saying that we should just be giving psychedelics to folks in prison and all of that. I think that is a very edgy thing to do, and probably not something that anybody should try. But it does kind of bring up this curious question of what is it about that would drive people to change those behaviors, and why do people make those behavioral decisions?
As many of you know, I've been taking AG1 for nearly 15 years now. I discovered it way back in 2012, long before I had a podcast, and I've been taking it every day since. AG1 is, to my knowledge, the highest quality and most comprehensive of the foundational nutritional supplements on the market. It combines vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens into a single scoop that's easy to drink and tastes great. It's designed to support things like gut health, immune health, and overall energy. And it does so by helping to fill any gaps that you might have in your daily nutrition. And of course, we should all eat high-quality whole foods, but most of us are probably not getting enough prebiotics, vitamins, and minerals, and AG1 ensures that those gaps are filled. If you'd like to try AG1, you can go to drinkag1.com/Huberman to get a special offer. For a limited time, AG1 is giving away a week's supply of AGZ, which is their sleep supplement, and a free bottle of vitamin D3K2 with your subscription. AGZ is something that I helped design. It tastes great, and it's the only sleep supplement I take. It has a collection of different things in it that has dramatically improved my sleep, both my slow wave deep sleep and my rapid eye movement sleep, and I absolutely love it. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Huberman to get a week's supply of AGZ and a bottle of D3K2 with your subscription. Before we wrap, I do want to give you the opportunity to talk about the SAINT study.
Yeah, SAINT, or what we're calling it S&T now, Stanford Accelerated Intelligent Neuromodulation Therapy, or now what we're calling Stanford Neuromodulation Therapy. The idea there is that TMS is a device that delivers a treatment, and the treatment is the protocol, and the protocol is the stimulation parameter set in a specific brain region for a specific condition, whether it be transcranial magnetic stimulation or transcranial direct current stimulation or deep brain stimulation, like what Casey Halburn talked about. In all of those cases, the device itself is a physical layer conduit of a stimulation protocol that's therapeutic for a given condition in a given brain region. We decided, gosh, this problem I talked about at the beginning of the show, where you have these, this problem that we don't have a treatment for people who are in these high acuity psychiatric emergency states, right? This idea that we're going to engineer a treatment where we can reorganize the stimulation approach in time to be much more efficient by utilizing something called space learning theory. And so you probably know about space learning theory. So the idea for the viewers is, if I'm cramming for a test, what I do is I write out 60 note cards and I read each one for a minute until I get to the first note card again, and that's about an hour later, right? That's space learning theory. It's this idea that you need to see it about every hour to an hour and a half, and that optimizes learning. What we found was that the old way of doing TMS, this idea of just doing it once a day, every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks, didn't utilize the space learning theory. It's like studying for a month or two, just a little bit once a day. Like, you remember some of that stuff, but it's like not as potent as that week where you're kind of cramming, right? And what we realized is that if we could reorganize the stimulation in time so that we took the whole 6-week course, we actually figured out a way to do it in a day. And then what we also figured out is that people were underdosing TMS, because if you just keep going after 6 weeks out to month 3, 4, 5, more and more people got better. So we figured out it's not just one day, we're gonna get 5 times the normal dose. We're gonna have 7.5 months worth in 5 days using space learning theory.
So every hour?
Every hour for 10 hours.
For 5 days.
5 days. So it's a 50-hour block. It's 90 minutes of actual stimulation, but spread out through the day in the same way of learning. What we've found is that folks will within 1 to 5 days, in more cases than not, and depending upon if you're looking at this open label or in trials, somewhere between 60 and 90% of the time, they will go into full-on remission, in the sense they're totally normal from a mood standpoint at the end of this. And like I said, with variable durability, so that's the part we have to figure out now about dosing and how to keep people well. But for some people, we've had 4 years of remission, a year of remission, and it's really that cramming of the test. It's really that idea that you're laying in that information to the exact right spot. And the signal is a simple signal, but it's a profound one, which is turn on, stay on, remember to stay on. That idea that you're sending this memory signal into the brain, and you're doing it in such a way that you're telling the system, you're kind of taking it out of the hippocampus's hand, your own hippocampus's hand, as you're sending the same signal the hippocampus normally signals out. Now you're sending that signal into the prefrontal cortex and kind of utilizing the brain's own communication style to get it to get out of this state. And what's very cool about this is that people, when they kind of exit out of that, they end up saying they don't have any side effects from it, and they feel back to normal.
Thank you so much for taking us on this incredible voyage through the neurocircuitry underlying certain aspects of depression, the coverage of the different types of depression, the various therapeutic compounds, how they work. We've talked about a lot of things today, and you've shared so much knowledge. And even as I say that, I very much want to have you back to talk about many other things as well that we didn't have time to cover, but to take the time to sit down with us and share all this knowledge that really is in service to mental health and humans feeling better, and in fact avoiding often suicidal depression. It's just incredible work and incredible generosity. Just thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the host of Dr. Death, Laura Beale. In an all-new season, I dig into the story of a surgeon who took advantage of a broken system and the fight to bring him to justice. There are people you're told to trust, lawyers, teachers, especially doctors. But what happens when you put your life in someone's hands and they betray you? Dr. Death, the Cowboy, is the story of a charming neurosurgeon who rode into Western towns selling a persona of confidence and care. He wore cowboy boots in the operating room and became sought after by patients. He promised to heal them, to help them. Instead, he left a trail of broken bodies. This season is about a doctor who's never truly been held accountable for the patients whose lives he ruined, and a story of greed, betrayal, and a fight for justice that will leave you questioning who to trust. We're about to play a clip from Dr. Death, the Cowboy. Listen to Dr. Death, the Cowboy, wherever you get your podcasts. Audible subscribers can binge all episodes of Dr. Death, the Cowboy, ad-free right now. Start your Audible subscription in the Audible app or on Apple Podcasts. When they were called in, he sat at the edge of the exam table. He was in his 60s, tall and wiry, and he began to lay it out for them.
I go over the films with them and say, here's the problem.
And then he told them what it meant.
We're gonna have to do surgery. We just need to fix the fusions that never healed. None of them healed.
Christy was speechless, trying to take it all in.
I said, the first surgery from Dr. Schneider? He said, no, none of the hardware is healed. None of it. And I'm picturing it in my head, all these screws and bolts in my mom's back just floating around. And I asked him, I said, so my mom was walking around with a broken back all this time? He said, yeah, none of it's healed. My mom didn't say anything. She was just listening in shock.
Dr. Narodsky was clear that there were no magic fixes. The best he could do was to remove the hardware and fuse her spine for a third time.
My brain was just going in every which direction. Like, do we trust this doctor? Does he know what he's doing?
And there was one question in particular that was weighing on her mind. The thought that Dr. Schneider had planted in her head.
I asked him if this was going to paralyze my mom. I still believed that he was right, Dr. Schneider, and anybody that touched her was going to paralyze her. There was nothing to be done.
Dr. Narodsky told her that wouldn't happen.
He wasn't pushy at all. He said, think on it, get back to me, let me know what you think.
Christy walked out of Dr. Narodsky's office relieved. Finally, she'd found someone willing to take on one of Dr. Schneider's patients. But as she took her mom and her two toddlers back out of the building and into the parking lot, Christy could feel her emotions rising.
I got the kids and my mom in the truck, and I walked around the parking lot so they wouldn't hear me.
She pulled out her cell phone and punched in the number for the office of Dr. Schneider.
I asked to speak to him. He wouldn't take the call, so I told the secretary to give him a message for me. I told her I wanted to hear it from Schneider, that he lied to us all these years, that my mom had a broken back, that she's walking around with
The smarter you are, the fewer kids you'll probably have. Meanwhile, those with fewer resources and less education tend to have kids early on and much often. Studies shown that smarter people don't only delay kids, they often have fewer, even with the same number of partners. This is a series where we talk about highly intelligent people. Intelligent people tend to have fewer children, and it's not because they're less sexual. Intelligence changes the way that you approach reproduction. Studies show that smarter people may start experimenting sexually earlier, and still end up with fewer children. Why is that? Because they use contraceptions more consistently, understanding consequences better, and have more access to other resources. Two people can have the same amount of partners, but the intelligent one is more likely to avoid unplanned pregnancy. Men and women with higher IQ are also more than likely to remain childless. For women, it comes from delaying parenthood for the pursuit of career or education. For men, it's not just delay. It's often an intentional choice to prioritize lifestyle, travel, and other career pursuits. And this creates one of the strongest paradoxes to evolution. Intelligence helps people succeed in modern life with education, wealth, and independence. But evolutionary, it works against reproduction. So intelligence thrive independently, but struggle evolutionary.
connection, I guess we could call it, between him and Yzerman. But on top of that, maybe just is kind of sick of not being in the playoffs. I mean, this guy was just in the biggest spotlight you could find in February in Milano Cortina, and then for the 11th time in his career, he has to sit home and watch everybody else keep playing.
What are the chances this becomes supremely ugly? Because Larkin has a lot of the chips in this one. He's got a full no trade clause for this season and next season. And Yzerman is, I don't think, someone that's necessarily going to be taken advantage of. So in this particular case, what are the chances we get to a situation where he might have to sit out the season or something of that ilk because neither side wants to budge with where they're going?
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that, like, there's some, the trade protection, I think, is sort of a mitigating factor here because there are probably a lot of places where Yzerman would like to ship in and get a nice package back. But the question is whether or not Larkin wants to play there. And so that becomes kind of a twist on this. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Red Wings here because it's, well, one, you don't want a situation where your captain is asked out and then you forced to play. But then two, when you trade him, you certainly have to get it right because this is a team that needs a lot kind of in the coffers to try to turn into a playoff contender. I happen to think that based on his value and what he can do on the ice, on both ends of the ice, I mean, he's a true number one center. And maybe the only other guy that can be available at that bill is Robert Thomas. And, the returns for him last year when his name was in circulation were extremely high too. So there's a lot of teams that I think are very interesting as fits for Larkin, but ultimately the other part of this we have to talk about is the fact that he's really good friends with some people in this league. Whether it's Quinn Hughes, the Minnesota Wild, who by the way need a center, whether it's Jack Hughes in New Jersey, who by the way has a center, Nico Fischer, who is in the midst of a contract negotiation with the new general manager, or whether it's the Cycle in England, a team that's always to find its way to acquiring players like Dylan Larkin.
Well, my mind went to one that you mentioned there, the Minnesota Wild, and partly because of Quinn Hughes, but also because of Bill Guerin. Bill Guerin, like if we're doing the February thing, which was, as much as I don't want to talk about it, the United States winning the Olympic gold medal, like it feels like a powerful touchstone here in terms of how we look at all this moving forward, because I think if we're seeing anything in the NHL is there's more of an attentiveness to, hey, is this the best place for me? Maybe when you started it, maybe you just carried it through, but Dylan Larkin also sort of feeding into that now, and Bill Guerin being the guy who not just needs a center, but kind of seems to like the fact that he can collect these guys that are going to play for him for club and country. You mentioned he's like a bona fide number one center though, and I agree that that's the case, but he's not on the Quinn Hughes level of, hey, that's number one defenseman, if that makes sense. Is that the move, do you think, that puts Minnesota over the top in its pursuit to take down Colorado, navigate the Central Division, get to the Stanley Cup?
I think the question for the Wild is, what do they have to offer? Like, he obviously is a better center than anything they have on their roster, and he's going to be a better center than anything they can find in other corners of the free agent trade market. You could think the argument is better Robert Thomas or Dylan Larkin, and I think it's a conversation we had. I think in both cases they're probably a tier down from that grade A number one guy. One of the players that they talked about trading Thomas last year was Jesper Wallstedt, and that becomes a little bit more complicated with the way that Gus played in the playoffs. The way that Wallstedt really rose up to the occasion. So, is he still somebody you're throwing to trade? Is he not? Is he off the table? If that's the case, then, how many more assets do they have? They gave up a lot to Quinn Hughes. So as much as it makes sense logically, there might be other teams out there that can offer more than the Wild or a position to offer at this point.
I think I know your answer to the last one. I think I know your answer on this, but who comes out looking worse in this situation? Larkin's obviously the one that made the trade request. He's also the captain of the team, and he's kind of abandoning the ship at a time that it's pretty tumultuous there. And then obviously Yzerman, they failed to surround him with enough pieces to get postseason, but you would imagine the captain asking out is probably pretty damaging to the Red Wings brand. Who comes out looking worse in the public eye in this situation, in your opinion?
I mean, undoubtedly it's Eisman, just because the Eiser plan has not produced anything close to a playoff appearance for this team. But I think we should say that this isn't like a Edmonton has failed Connor David situation. Like Larkin has definitely had some struggles there and hasn't performed in certain situations and has come under criticism for his own performances while he's been in Detroit. So I think he gets a certain amount of, hey, maybe there's a reason why this team hasn't made the playoffs. But ultimately, I think it's the team's inability to really make big moves. I mean, look, would we be having this conversation if they were able to land Quinn Hughes? Probably not. And so that's part of it. I think it definitely is more on management than it is on anybody else.
Okay, let's move on to Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight from Raleigh. Obviously, Carolina needs a victory tonight because the historical data is damning, but Vegas also kind of looks like the potential for a runaway train here if this goes up 2-0. It goes back to Vegas. But what does Carolina need to do to change the outcome tonight?
First of all, I should say that every Davis writer I've spoken to believes it'll be a sweep. So, that's just kind of where their mindset is, and maybe they know it. I mean, they cover the team more than anybody else does. So, look, it really is kind of the question we all have about this game, which is how much of what we saw in Game 1 was stuff that they can clean up. Was it nerves? Was it just, getting used to a team that exerts more pressure on them than anybody else they've played? Or how much of it is simply just Vegas exerting their will in a series in the same way that Carolina was able to exert their will on teams like Montreal? And so that's what we're all going to kind of figure out tonight. I will say I really liked their fight that they had in Game 1, like the ability to come back in that game. A little bit of that is Carter Hart not playing all that well, but a lot of that is Carolina keeping their full of penalties, things are going right for them. But I asked Rod Brindamore what I thought was a pretty important question this morning, which is Freddie Anderson. His numbers in the first 2 rounds were incredible, 950 save percentage. His numbers in his last 6 games, not incredible. I think his save percentage in the neighborhood of like 860 or something like that. So, Brindamore said they have faith in him, but he didn't mention the idea of like fatigue, which is kind of crazy to think about when a guy has played like 1 game with the minimum number of games you can play in the playoffs. But Freddie's shown that in the past where, for whatever reason, health, fatigue, maybe a couple bad games in a row, it just seems to kind of snowball for him. So I'm not saying he was to blame for Game 1, because I think his defense let him down, but he's certainly someone to watch Game 2.
Yeah, if you were to make a recipe of things that could go wrong for the Hurricanes over the short series, it would be Freddie being tired and the quote-unquote top line of the team just not being able to generate anything. How much is there on that line to get going? $25 million spread amongst the 3 of them, and they can't generate anything, at least the last little while.
Yeah, it's bad. and Brindamore said the other day, they've been able to get away with that in these playoffs because that Aho line's not been good at all the entire run. So because of how good the Taylor Hall line has been, because of how much offense they've gotten out of the second line with the Oilers, they've not had to worry about it. And now they have to worry about it because they're not going to win the series if they don't get anything out of it, especially talk to Aho and Jarvis. The trick is, if they don't perform, what do you do? Because you run the risk of maybe hurting one of the lines that's going well in order to kind of fix your top line. You could probably drop Jarvis down to the check line and move Ehlers up, or move Jarvis down to the Taylor Hall line and move Jackson Blake up. But then you run the risk of kind of ruining something that is working. So I don't know. They're going to have to kind of play their way out of it. And right now they're just in their own heads. I think Jarvis has been particularly bad in these playoffs for some reason. But it's definitely an Achilles heel for them in the series so far.
Famously not inside his own head is Mitch Marner, Greg. It's obviously the Mitch Marner story as it pertains to the Stanley Cup Final is a Toronto story, but it's also not a Toronto story. Why do you think the Marner storyline has resonated so much even outside of Toronto and outside of Vegas, outside of the Stanley Cup Final cities as well?
Well, I mean, even if you take the Toronto out of it, it's still a story of redemption, right? It's a guy who, had the failures of the team put on his shoulders, his own performances in the playoffs where, capable of the least part of it. I have found it kind of interesting that I've talked to a lot of police fans. They're just like, oh, why put
Take the Andy Ace administrator account and apply it to the live website so it's no longer a demo account.
And well, I wrote about this last week. What the Toronto reaction has been to Marner, and there are certain. I'm sure there's a lot of shots for some people that back in the day, let go of somebody who now is going to maybe win the Conn Smythe. But at the end of the day, I don't think he would ever have done this in Toronto, and that's kind of one of the things you have to remember about all of this.
Yeah, I guess Leaf fans should be cheering for Vegas in a weird way because we got to hear about the dark times that Mitch Marner has had. So it's like, they probably don't want to see him win, but at the same time, we'd like to have the draft drawn, or maybe the media would. I'm not asking about John Cooper winning the Jack Adams Award. To me, it feels a little bit like a lifetime achievement award for a guy who's been in the mix multiple times. This is a Lightning team that didn't win the division this year, but with all due respect, he deserves it because it's been a long time coming for John Cooper. But was it a little bit surprising to you that this is the year he finally gets it?
It wasn't surprising because we don't vote for it. The broadcasters do, and the broadcasters obviously like a good narrative and a guy that talk. So that's John Cooper. Listen, it's definitely his Al Pacino winning percent with a woman. After it's years in the making. It's something that should have happened well before this year. It's not to say he didn't do a good job. I mean, that Lightning team. I know they took some slack for kind of fading at the end, but they faded at the end because again of all the absences. They didn't have Victor Hedman for like the last month of the season. He's pretty point with that. Like there's so many things that he had to go through to get the team to where they were in the standings. I think he did a remarkable job. But I have sympathy for all the Sabres fans that are like, how could you not give it to Lindy Ruff based on breaking the playoff drought? I have sympathy for Penguins fans that are just like, no one thought we'd be in the playoffs. And Dan Hughes did an amazing job with the supporting cast. And there are other coaches around the league, whether it was Glenville or others, that certainly had a claim to stake on this war. But I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, it's just kind of like I'm happy for Coop because for him to have had the run that he's had and not have Jack Adams is incredible. So it may come at the expense of other people, but I'm just happy that he got his flowers finally.
It feels like the most pissed a fan base has ever been about the Jack Adams. Like Buffalo's like burning right now, but it's also like the closest I've ever seen an award vote, just 3 points. So I gotta ask, and we hypothesized on this yesterday. Was the fedora at the Stadium Series the difference? Do you think that was worth, at the end of the day, 3 points in this vote?
I mean, if it wasn't the fedora, it was the Scarface suit and then also the cigar.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Buffalo fans that I'm wondering about, like whether they're going to come to Jesus on this or not. Can you win the Jack Adams if your team wins despite their coach? Like part of the story of the Sabres this season, apparently behind the scenes, was just like not liking Lindy Ruff. Like what would have blocked them together around December to go on the crazy run that they went on. Now maybe he gets credit for that. Maybe it's like in Major League where they all hated the owner, and that's what brought them together to try to win like the World Series or whatever. But it wasn't as if he was a master tactician. I think the most credit that Lindy deserves is everybody hating his guys. They all found a way to work together and win.
That's the reverse Cassidy.
Herb Brooks and Miracle.
Exactly. And maybe the most pitch would be Penguins being Stan Hughes was like kind of exactly what you expect from a Jack Adams winner. Given the expectations and given the results, not the playoff result, the regular season result. Anyway, Wish, enjoy Game 2. Safe travels to Vegas. Hopefully you get at least one more flight out of this, and that not all the Vegas writers are correct in their 4-game assertion.
We shall see. It should be intriguing. I picked Carolina in 6. We'll see how that goes. But game 1 was a little discouraging. So we'll see how it goes tonight.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes in Game 1 tonight. Thanks, Wish. Enjoy it.
Anytime, thanks.
Very much this game this weekend. Yeah, I think so. That game was really close, right? 3 minutes left. It's basically an overtime goal, despite the chance to tie. But it was to me, it was a non-close game. Like it was like everything that could have gone right for Carolina kind of did at some points. Like you get the early lead, you get to tack on another one. You kind of get some bounces that allow you to score again. Jordan Stahl, it gets a goal that was off a turnover. Like, there were a lot of Vegas mistakes. But then, like, just kind of like watching it very intently and looking at what the matchups are going to look like, kind of seeing Vegas slowly and a little bit more of it every single shift. To me, it felt like there was a dominant team there, and I don't know if it's going to look the same way, but I think if you played that game 10 times, the 8 of them would go.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about game one. I do think the Hurricanes obviously have yet to show their best in the series, and I think they're a really, really good road team too. Their style, the way they play, is very conducive to playing on the road, and playing well on the road. So I think even if tonight was to go their way, statistically, things would not be in their favor, clearly. But if there's any team that can go on the road and win a couple of tight games and make this a series again, I do think the Carolina Hurricanes would be one of those teams. So, yes, it's a huge game tonight, but I'm not willing to go up the limb and say this is like the ultimate must-win tonight for the Carolina Hurricanes. I do think they would have a chance.
I would just be so concerned about Freddie. Oh yeah,
Yes,
you're
yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Like I could see that maybe they go to the backup seat, and then maybe they try and find something there. But I guess Rod Brind'Amour resisting the urge to make a move. Top line will stay the same despite its struggles in this series, and that means the second and third line stay the same. They've been really, really good. But again, I worry about what that second line can get done and carry the load offensively and exclusively in this series, given that the matchup is so tough for them also in this series. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. We are 1 week away officially from the World Cup starting, 6 days or 7. How can I do it? 8 days from Canada Open at Toronto Stadium down there at BMO. I don't know if we've ever talked soccer. Are you excited for a home World Cup? Or are you excited for the Canadian national team?
Yeah.
Naming Maxime Crépeau, their starting keeper today. Have you up the fever?
Well, I watched their previous match, and I have to say, it feels like with the amount of injuries that the team is dealing with, they're going into this World Cup, even though a portion of it is at home, with I think less fanfare than they went into the last one. Like there's almost less excitement, and a lot of that obviously points to whether or not Alfonso Davies is going to play. But
we like realize that it was when you earn your way in, we didn't get to experience that part of the league, and therefore it's like, oh, we'll see you.
the attitude of jumping in the snow, the little things that got along that run.
That was a real time.
Yeah, it was momentum. When you said extra matches, first one you Belgium, not that inspired that way, but there was a confidence that the squad had and the nation had going into that World Cup, and I just don't see it. And it doesn't help. I think there's a lot of negatives to hosting the World Cup at all. It's so stressful with traffic, especially they're sold out and that sort of thing. So I don't want to take the dark cloud of the team, but the injuries definitely give me some cause for concern. Ben Chico leaving the last match with ice around his previously broken fibula. Like, these are not good things you want to see before a World Cup, where you kind of are a squad that needs everything to have the results you want. So a little bit more concerning than 4 years ago, but obviously.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years ago, it was amazing. Ryan, all these guys. This year, it's like, okay, or something bad happening right now in Portugal. It's going to affect Canada's performance at the World Cup. It's kind of more games. And hoping that they should there again. Alfonso Davies, who continues to get rid of continues to do clamp of time on it. Yeah, it's just like over and over and over again. Sort of the same game here, and it's frustrating. Hopefully he'll be there for something on the path to a potential World Cup group stage advancing.
Yeah.
I think I said that very well, but I'll stick to it. Very quickly before I show you our consequences. Montford and Sons 2026 in the Fly Spider Tour. If you got your chance to be there, all you have to do is listen for our code word. Your chance to be there. His code word is Rivers. Text Rivers to 59590 right now for your chance to win. Don't forget we have one final code word tomorrow, so keep listening. Ticketmaster contest open to Ontario residents only. Standard messaging data rates may apply. If you do get the tickets from this contest read, you might see Jesse Rittenhouse.
I will be there. I will be at White's birthday.
Nicely done.
Give me good books after that one.
When they were like,
Yeah, we both have been for, I actually met her 15 years ago or so. Met her at a Montreux concert. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, easy.
if you're listening to this, Justin Bieber, I desperately need you to go and get myself out of a doghouse that is just for quite some time.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so Alyssa and I have been tracking the Cons fight since the first game, nearly 2 months ago, and of course, just exclusively for Kings and the Golden Knights now. I'm not sure if you have the list, but I will tell you the list. It was based on what happened after game 1. We got Mitch Marner, number 1, Jack Eichel, Carter Hart, Frederick Anderson, Taylor Hall. Do you have any beef with our top 5?
I think there's a bit of a problem there. With all due respect, they're probably the second highest hurricane is probably a little bit concerning. It tells you everything you need to know about depth concerns.
They don't have actually a good selection, right? Like Freddie Anderson being that guy is, I guess, I think what we think is right.
What is a bad game tonight and somehow they win? It's like
Show me the accounts on the live website database.
Maybe someone scores 2 tonight, maybe the Clouds, Andre Miller with his advanced numbers get in there. But I think a big problem in another sport. Carolina, their big guys are not producing. And without that, and it's been an historical issue for them, who's going to carry you through a series that is really difficult like this one? We know Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner have been capable of doing that so far.
Mitch is winning it 100% of it. I don't even care what happens.
They're not going to be able to resist that.
It's the narrative. Yeah.
Though I watch a game where it's like Jack Eichel is going to be far away the best player and still lose. Because again, that story is too good.
I love it.
Okay, tomorrow we'll be back.
Let's do it.
We will tee up game 2 of the NBA.
What a game last night. Yeah.
Today is all. That was probably an oversight on our end, but we'll get to it tomorrow. Tee up game 2 of the NBA. Enjoy the game.
Introducing the steak and cheese melt at Firehouse Subs. Stacked with new tender, flame-seared prime rib, melted provolone, caramelized onions and peppers, top sliced, toasted twice and extra milk. Because firefighters do things the right way. Only at Firehouse Subs.
He became the director of his life. An Exotica, an extraordinary travel crafter, made it happen. And now, don't miss the new Spring Black Friday with the best prices of the year.
Players should be able to edit the email that they've chosen for their account to send the email push notifications.
I saw my phone. My underwear keeps running. Like, no, why don't you buy your own guys? There's no need for this. Who the heck are you guys? We created these. What the heck are those? Just the most comfortable underwear you've ever worn. Yeah, no, I know. We designed them to stop chafing, wedges, and constant adjustment. You see, Steve, the man means exactly what you need. So visit manmadebrand.com and try yours today.
You say you can't imagine your child being diagnosed with cancer, but you can.
Imagine your child's cancer is so rare, they're naming it after them. Imagine it's either paying for gas to get to treatment or paying your mortgage.
Imagine your child has radiation, and you have a deadline.
Imagine your child's immune system is failing to nurture your support system.
Imagine you need something to
Imagine losing your job.
Imagine losing your house.
Imagine losing it all.
Donate today at childhoodcancer.ca. If
thrives in a vehicle purchase and ownership experience that's centered around you. With the option to customize and purchase at home or in store. And have confidence in the journey ahead with 5 years of complimentary scheduled maintenance and service that comes seamlessly to your doorstep. This is what makes us different. This is Genesis.
Is it too big? It's Canadian Tire's big red sale. It should be big. I mean, it's a big sale, is it?
The summer big red sale, on from June 4th to 11th.
A Wendy's 10-piece nugget small combo is just $8.99. And when you get 100% all white meat Canadian seasoned chicken, plus fries, and a drink for just $8.99, yeah, that's just good economics.
Lately, business has become more, let's say, challenging. Was it ever easy? No, but boy, was it simpler. And then the world got complicated. So what do we do now? We roll up our sleeves, we build it ourselves. We do it here and better with BDC. I'm talking about technical textiles for every kind of weather imaginable. Or as we call it in Canada, April. Or next-gen manufacturing, high speed, high precision. High five! Good job, buddy. And microchips or drones and quantum technologies. I have no idea what a quantum is, but I know we are crushing it. So entrepreneurs, this is your moment. Business, big and small, do your thing and build our things. BDC is helping you lead the way in making a stronger Canada. From aluminum to AI and beyond. And which way is neutral?
Wembanyama looks to make a statement against New York as the NBA Finals continue. Knicks, Spurs, Game 2, Friday on Sportsnet.
Two teams left standing. Vegas looks for its second
thinks he's in a good position to be out at the top of his crease and flash the leather to make the save.
Hurricanes regroup. Just over the yards remaining. Here in the opening period, that started with a bang. And an early goal by Nick Ehlers. Coughlin strides back to install. In on the forecheck, around it goes. And Dorothea tied up just outside the Vegas line.
On the live site, it does not have an administrator that I can log into. Please fix this.
walk rate's still nice and low. He comes into today with an ERA under 1 at home. What's really interesting is we are in an era where the young pitcher dominates. The Jacob Mizorowski's, the Chase Burns, stuff ratings, and young pitchers coming up for gas. But we actually have a couple of pretty good 35-plus pitchers over the last several years. Max Scherzer, chief among them. Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw just wrapped up a post-35 playing career where his ERA was right around 3. And it's interesting to look at guys like DeGrom, guys like Chris Sale. We will probably have to recontextualize what the Hall of Fame looks like because no one's getting to 3,000 innings after this era. No one's getting to 3,500 strikeouts. But at a time when injuries are through the roof and young pitchers do seem to dominate, at least narratively, we are at a time when there are more 35-plus pitchers pitching at a top level than any time since the Roger Clemens, Randy Johnson part of the early 2000s. Kevin Gausman is included in this as well. So while it may feel like a young man's game on the mound with all the measurables, and it seems like a risky game with all the injury stuff, Chris Sale has bucked that trend and is kind of the leader of this post-35 cohort.
Thank you, Blake. You were a right indicator. If you were playing tonight, how would you approach it?
I push not only play, I would seek the inner half out of the fear of chasing that slider in between the back knee.
And if you hit left,
I would pray.
It's best we do. It's best we can all do, apparently, as we get set for this final game at Truist Park. It's Atlanta hosting Toronto, and it's coming your way on Sportsnet.
They told me they were going to get merry-go-rounds and watch the game every weekend. I just heard merry-go-rounds. Now I'm into tech. Sometimes it's hockey, and then it's baseball, basketball. I think we even watched a dog show last week. I'm just here for the chicken, man.
Everyone's a fan of something. Get 6 pieces of signature chicken, taters, and gravy with the fan favorite from Mary Brown's Chicken. Crave Canadian.
We are a housing, energy, and defense company. Every day, we deliver the essentials that life depends on. Because possibility doesn't happen by chance. It's built. It's powered. It's protected. So when the next generation asks what we stand for, we can say we gave them something to stand on and the freedom to imagine more. AGCO. Possibilities for generations.
With Rogers Xfinity Internet, my whole house is ready for baseball. So this is where I buy all my memorabilia. Boom! Just got Clement's childhood glove. Mom, she's really come through for me. And this is where I stream everything.
Sweet setup.
It's all for you guys.
Michael, what is this?
Oh, yeah. That's where I keep my modem.
Get Major League Internet with Rogers Xfinity.
Yeah, Wi-Fi just pouring out of that thing.
GMC drivers know that not every job site has concrete. The GMC Sierra Pro Graphite delivers power and authority. To find footing just about anywhere. The GMC 0% event is here. Get 0% financing on select 2026 models and limited terms. Visit your nearest dealership today. GMC, we are professional grade.
Today is your day. A day to rise, to make your mark, to move forward.
Write an Instagram or Facebook caption where we will be hosting our first live draft on our EBC platform website. So we will need 8 players to join and do a live draft, which should take 1 hour of your time with 60-second selections. Once you're in a draft tournament, you can choose one Pokemon in the species, and you can no longer use it. Nobody else can use it.
That tracks. Struggling reliever, advantage, offense.
Blue Jays money line. Lock it in.
That placed.
I can't take this anymore.
Oh yeah, you don't have hands. Not you.
You're watching Rogers Blue Jays baseball on Sportsnet. Thank you so much for tuning in Truist Park in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Ben Schulman alongside Caleb Joseph down on the field. Arden is swelling as the Blue Jays are trying to salvage this series against the Braves and snap a 4-game losing streak that they've seen after reaching 500 a little bit earlier in this trip. It's a Blue Jays team that was close in game 1, not so close yesterday in a 7-2 win. Here's how the lineup stacks up today. It's going to be a tough night for the lefties, but no one is on it right now, Blue Jays. Then Nathan Lucas, you see all those righties, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Blue Jays, and part of the reason you do that is one of the toughest left-handers in the world is on the mound for the Braves, future Hall of Famer Chris Sale.
12th start for the 37-year-old lefty. Last time out, old stomping grounds at Fenway Park, 5 innings, 2 runs. Here's the key, 97 was the average fastball from Sale. That number has ticked back up. He has been in amazing form. 16th Major League season, won his Cy Young in 2024, 9-time All-Star. It is a very unique delivery. It's crossfire, it's low, it's right in your face. He's a tough customer. You gotta pick one spot. Hope you get that pitch. Take a look at the defense behind the veteran in left field. Mike Yastrzemski makes another start. Started game 1 there for the Braves. Harris and Acuna Jr. Big arm in right field for Acuna Jr. Be on the lookout for that. Riley Duvon, Albies, Matt Olson, 3 gold gloves over there. Very slick fielding first baseman. The veteran Sandy Leon back behind the plate with a familiar face in Chris Sale on the mound. These two have matched up quite often. Leon knows Sale like the back of his hand. They'll be sequencing left and right. Hopefully, Jays can figure that out. Beat some out in front and put Sale behind the 8-ball.
This is the battery for Atlanta, or for Boston, I should say. Game 1 of the 2018 World Series is Chris Sale and Sandy Leon. First pitch to George Springer, misses down and in ball 1. You can see right there, if you weren't familiar, that really, really funky angle that Chris Sale's coming from.
99, first pitch of the game. Goodness.
Pitch. This is the crazy thing about Sale. He just hit 99 again. He's 37 years old, and he's got his best fastball velocity since 2015. There's 98 for a called strike at the knees. Balls and strikes tonight handled by Carlos Torres. Breaking ball, grounded foul. That's the slider for Sale, the pitch he's actually thrown the most of any this year. Springer had the day off yesterday, back in the lineup today. Just a regular day for him in the middle matchup of the series. This time he lines the ball deep down the right field line, and that's going to get down on the warning track. George Springer into second, and a good start for the Blue Jays. A double off Chris Sale.
I love this swing from George Springer. It's down with 2 strikes, just trying to battle, probably trying to go closer to him. That ball's out over the plate, and he lets it travel and just throws his hand at it. But because of the velocity, because he beats barrel to baseball, it's able to scoop down there. Blue Jays for the 2nd night in a row have got some traffic early on in this ball game.
Last night it was bases loaded, nobody out in the top of the first. They only got 1 out of it. There's Ernie Clement up in the order against the lefty. He'll ground a ball left side. It's going to be a tough play for Dubon. There's no play. And Ernie Clement is safe at first. Springer unsure if that was going to get through, so he holds up at second.
One of those kind of unique plays where if you're going to go, you've got to go and be very committed, especially committed that Riley's not going to make this play. You don't want to make the first out at third base. You can see Springer kind of going back, and then see once it was past Riley, if that would have been able to get through to the left fielder there, past Dubon, then Springer would have advanced, but tweener. See, it's one of those tweeners. You'd love to advance to give Vladdy an at-bat, first and third no outs, but make the smart play early in the ball game.
You'll take first and second, nobody out. Either way, top of the first inning, and the pitch to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is hit high in the air, shallow left field, coming forward, Yastrzemski into the sunlight to make the grab.
Talking to a few players yesterday about that bases loaded jam where they were only able to get one. They all mentioned the shadows. You see a little bit of light right behind the pitching mound, and then look at the batter's eye all the way past Harris the second. That light-dark contrast, especially where Sale's coming out of, that could play a factor early in this game before the sun sets.
Cosmo Okamoto to the plate. Yeah, first pitch swung on and missed. Slider in the dirt to get ahead 0-1. Is there anything you can do to combat shadows?
Nope. Hope for the best.
Okamoto with a hit yesterday in 4 tries, and he had a home run, a walk, and a hit in the opener. It's been a nice series for him.
This is kind of what you're seeing from the batter's perspective. That ball can flash a little bit. It comes out light, dark, then light again. Pretty tough to pick up spin.
Fastball at the knees, good pitch. Rather cheap it there at 90. 2-2.
You can pick up the lane. You see the ball in its lane, but you can't distinguish spin, which tells you which direction it could be going. Closer to you, underneath, away from you.
2-2. And foul back. Defensive swing there on the heater up. Hideo Okamoto keeping himself alive. His 13 home runs by far lead the Blue Jays. See Nathan Lucas waiting there. He is 2 batters away with Charles McAdoo on deck. And a swing and a miss, strike 3. Okamoto goes down, and there are 2 outs.
It's just a wipeout slider from Sale. Such a signature pitch from him. You see the trail on the end of that baseball. It starts in the left-hander batter's box and then is going to almost literally finish back foot to a right-hander. It's covering so much width. Very tough to lay off. Pretty tough as a first time seeing that pitch.
Charles McAdoo batting, and the first pitch is in there for a strike. Chris Sale is a 9-time All-Star 2018 World Series champion. Not an easy guy to tangle with, especially in your 3rd major league game. It's a bit of a jump off second there by Springer, but he decided to hold up. Ernie Clements watching Springer from first. Jumped with him, but they both held up. Springer talking with Dubon, a couple of former teammates with the Houston Astros. Or actually not, they did not overlap, pardon me. 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, strike 3. McAdoo goes down, and after getting first and second with nobody out, the Blue Jays do not score. They're on 0-0, go to the bottom of the 1st in Atlanta.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Rogers, Canada's best and most reliable 5G Plus network. Rogers, we got you.
Bathroom just fix the bathroom. We engineered a revolution. The PermaFit system, custom built to the millimeter, delivering the ultimate watertight solution. Bathroom, more than a renovation, a revolution.
Add in the Pokédex, the CP for the 1500 CP Pokemon, and their overall rankings in the PvPoke charts. Try to integrate that with the Pokédex.
Knicks, Spurs, Game 2, Friday on Sportsnet.
Couple of 3-run homers for the Atlanta Braves last night. One of the highest scoring teams in baseball. Matt Olson has had his hands all Mason Fluharty.
Major League leading 33rd appearance of the season for Fluharty. His third start as kind of this opener here in 2026. He's been very, very difficult against left-handers. Walt Weiss has kind of maneuvered his lineup a little bit, shifting Harris the second down. Mauricio Dubon is batting second, but he has the weapons to defend himself against right-handed hitters, and he's going to face really tough customers right at the top. Dubon and Olsen. Trying to kind of sweep Olsen away, keeping Olsen in check in this third game. I think is going to be the key to allowing the Blue Jays pitching staff to really get it going.
Fluharty offers a first pitch home, and it's a big moving sweeper. First strike to get ahead. We're expecting the bulk of the innings today to go to Chad Dallas in his major league debut. We know he'll factor in some way for John Schneider. But there's a lot of lefties in this lineup. You might want to push Fluharty a little bit. 3 different left-handed hitters for batters, 3 to 6 in the lineup. Upstairs from the cutter. He's been asked to open a handful of times in front of right-handed pitchers this year. It's the 3rd time that the lefty is opening a game for the Blue Jays this season. Strikes out Acuna to start his day.
A really good cutter here from Mason Fluharty. 92, it's a hard one. Check out the downward action. He swings right over the top of it.
Strikeouts are brought to you by Subway. Get 25% off any football on game days. Order the Subway app using code STRIKEOUT. So one of the righties down, and now here's Mauricio Dubon. Dubon's 3-run homer off of Adam Macko in the later stages last night was really the dagger. It was a 4-2 game that turned into a 7-2 game. And Braves cruise from there. Fluharty allowing a 381 average to righties this year, 136 to lefties. Throws a 2-0 to Dubon, and it's outside ball 3.
Open stance. He's going to be trying to go bullseye. Not be shocked if he released right here. That's how you defend against it. You got a guy that's kind of stepping in the bucket, meaning stepping towards third base, towards that left field line, trying to pull. Best way to combat that, pitches on the outer lane.
Nice backdoor sweeper right there to Button. Acuna Jr. watching on alongside his teammates. Mason Fluharty works here. 10 pitches already for Fluharty in this first, but he got a strikeout of Acuna a moment ago. Payoff pitch. Rounded fouls. It's a small chase there, it looked like, on a cutter in, or maybe actually a little bit bigger of a chase on a cutter in. Still 3-2. Seldom used changeup has been mixed in once. And now another chase there. The free swinging Dubon protecting with 2 strikes, keeps himself up there.
Yep, and this is what he can do. Much like Ernie Clement, might not look aesthetically pleasing, but look at that back leg just fly all the way back into the back part of the batter's box. Call that the scissor move. Happens naturally. set versus the Atlanta Braves. For the Toronto Blue Jays in left field, Nathan Lucas. Miles Straw gets a start in center field. Varsho the day off. Piñango drew the short stick, having to go left on left versus Sale. Okamoto Clement, Charles McAdoo making his second major league start at second base. Bird Jr. and Heineman probably.
Matt Olson is the batter for the Braves. 5 for 8 in the series. Singles. Double home run. He's just had his hands all over everything. Even yesterday, when he didn't have the extra base hits, 3 in singles, 2 of them came right before big multi-run home runs for the Braves.
Rarely looked fooled in this series, man. With that kind of hanging over with his hands and just a very easy kind of leg kick, the weight shifts forward, and it's just been really difficult to really get on that front side and take that back plane out of the lane.
Hits this one high in the air to left field. And Nathan Lucas makes his way over there to make the grab. Get him on a 3-0 cutter over the middle and take that.
Add the information from the file with Pokemon that are eligible for the Ultra League, which is 2500 CP and below, and add that to the Pokédex.
Saving nothing. Tough customer in Albies.
Season high pitches for Fluharty is 27, although that's a lot more than his second highest, which is 20. First pitch to Albies is a good one. We've been talking about it all series, but an unconventional stance from Ozzie Albies. Crowds to the plate, big leg kick over home plate. You can see, I mean, you said it earlier, that's bordering on what's illegal, where his foot is in the back of that box. And he lines the ball to left field. Lucas coming in to make the grab. Nathan Lucas takes a hit away from Ozzie Albies, and it's a scoreless, hitless bottom of the first for Mason Fluharty. A lot of reasons the Blue Jays are happy to have Nathan Lucas.
So I hammer the rudder, we go perpendicular.
Mark that away. That's nothing. I took the heavy Dodgers last night. They went vertical out of the gate. Then they got outmaneuvers. With the lead. Tower up. These are our sights. Negative Tower, his win is a go. With Bet365's early payout, I won the second big
Soon as one.
They paid out early.
We need to win the hand. No. Alright, let's take the win and get out of here.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was born from the Japanese judo.
Fine, we'll let it ride one more time.
Flying traditions that Spanish do. Spain. After
This brings us back.
sound systems to the UK, the World Cup happened. And this is what the world gets for 40
Jumping up much higher, so
Well, Nathan Lucas doesn't consider himself a home run hitter. He says his goal every year is just to hit runs, so he can take that big 0 down from the scoreboard and doesn't have to stare.
I like Guelph even though there's construction. I like Guelph even though there's construction. I like Guelph even though there's construction. I like Guelph. I like Guelph even though there's construction. I like Guelph even though there's construction. I like Guelph even though there's
2 walks and 3 extra base hits, and the results are well earned. He has the second highest expected batting average across the money.
What can I get for you?
You got drinks?
No, but I got milkshakes. What can I get for you?
You got drinks?
No, but I got.
From earlier this season when he was experiencing vertigo, and his confidence right now, it's as high as it's been all season. He credits his mindset coming off the IL for helping him hit the ground running. Lucas committed to not using the rust from missing a month of games as a pre-excuse for a potential slow start in his return.
And not only is he helping them at the plate, he's also helping them defensively. Just made a nice play in left field. And he was tied for the team leading assists last year from the outfield. 9 outfield assists, so did Addison Barger. He did play out there a little more than Barger. is not going to be the most comfortable matchup for any left-handed hitter when you're facing a guy like Chris Sale.
No, like John Schneider said, you got to really force him close to you as a left-hander, meaning look for that ball close, because when he goes away, especially with that devastating slider, it's so easy to chase. So set your eyesight on the inner lane. If it's close to you, you probably have time to reach for that slider. If it's a fastball,
And do the same thing for the Master League Pokemon in the Pokédex ranking.
right-handed batter, when I faced Sale, it almost felt like I was looking towards second base. That's how, the second baseman rather, that's how drastic his arm angle is at 10 degrees and how crossfire he is. Very, very unique delivery.
Miss inside, ball 4 and a 4-pitch walk to Nathan Lucas. Not a ton of walks for Sale this year. That's his 18th walk to 82 strikeouts. Miles Straw digs in for the first time tonight. He'll get the start out in center field. All our show with the night off. Beautiful ballpark here. Truist Park opened in 2017. Sandy Leone keeping an eye on Nathan Lucas, who has only tried to run once this year and was caught stealing. That was early in the year. With a guy as tough as Chris Sale on the hill, are you thinking hit and runs, bunts, or exotic kind of small ball type things to get run creation opportunities?
Well, John Schneider was asked that before the game, and he said, how do you get to Sale? He said, create as much traffic as you possibly could. Look to clip him out in front for a 3-run home.
Check swing, did he go? He did not, says Jacob Metz. And it's 2-2.
Might not be the guy that you try and get 10 hits off of, and the recipe is grinding that bat out, try and draw a walk, maybe find a hole somewhere, and then someone really try and take a shot. Miles can get this to the pull side. He does have some pop that way.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out on a breaking ball. That's Sale's 3rd K already.
That swing right there is just very indicative that he just did not see it. Just a bit of a half swing, probably could not see the spin. Maybe those shadows still playing a bit of a factor.
Tyler Heineman to the plate with the runner on first and 1 out. And the pitch is line foul to the right. Heineman a little bit behind that fastball at 98 miles an hour.
You don't deserve all the mean
It's
things
not
that
only a
have been said
guy
to you.
with over 2,100 innings in his career, but a guy who went through some pretty significant
You don't deserve
injuries.
all the mean things that have been said
And
to
yet
you.
in his late 30s continues to have that much
All the mean
velocity.
things said to yourself. You don't deserve all the mean things that have been said to you.
Yeah, he's an
You don't
anomaly
deserve
for
all the
sure.
mean things you
Just
said to yourself.
kind of how his body
You don't
works.
deserve. I wish more beginner
In terms
photographers
of being
knew this
kind of a
about your
taller,
camera, because it's
lengthier
actually gonna
guy.
help you learn how to shoot in
And just the
manual
way he's
mode
able
so
to
much
contort
quicker.
and
And it's
really
called
load those
the histogram
scapular
from
muscles,
SAM.
the way
I coach beginner
kind of pull
photographers,
back and
and I
just
designed a
rubber
guide
band
specifically
effect
to
all
teach you
over
how
the
to take
place.
photos you'd actually be proud of. Most beginner
Very
photographers
jerky
jump into
type of
manual
motion.
mode without using this camera feature, and all that it's doing is
Line
making
drive
your
by
life
Heineman,
easier.
and
Instagram is
sinking it
designed to
down
make
in
your
center
life easier
field.
when you're shooting
On
in
to
manual.
second goes
And you want
Lucas
to know how to
Tyler
adjust your
Heineman
camera
with
settings
a
for a
base hit.
perfectly
And Blue
exposed
Jays
photo. So this is how the
Heineman
histogram
again,
works.
first
The
and
histogram
second
is a
for
graph.
the second
It shows
inning
you
in a
the
row.
exposure
You're
in
gonna have to
real
do
time.
something
Think of it as a mouse.
against
The left side
Sale in
represents
one of
shadows
these
and dark
opportunities
areas.
because
The
you're
right
just
side
not gonna
represents
get very
highlights
many
and
of
bright
them off
areas.
of.
And the middle is your midtones.
An elite
If your
pitcher like
Instagram is to
Sale
the
does
left,
really
then
good
your
job.
photo is underexposed. If it's to the right, then your
Your
photo
hands
is
inside that
overexposed.
ball as
The
Heineman
goal is to
does.
keep your histogram roughly in the middle
Creates
without
good
coming out
tilt
of
in the mat, which gives that ball a little bit of lift off.
You've lost detail in either your shadows or your
Sometimes there's hits
So
closer
adjust your
towards the
camera
leg when I
settings based on
guarantee
what the histogram
Hopkins
is
is
telling you.
thinking, man.
Understanding your camera settings is
Ronaldo
just
can
one
just
piece of the
catch a
puzzle.
hanging
The thinking behind
slider
Instagram
out
photos
front.
is exactly what my
Could
guide
be a
teaches.
business.
I would
Iago swings in the first one and skips it into the Blue Jay dugout. A couple down, but everyone's all right. It's 0-1. DeMarlo Hale really had to get out of the way of that one, I believe. At-bats against lefties this year for Piñango. Top pitch right there. Leon was actually about to challenge right before the pitch was called to strike by Carlos Torres. 0-2.
It's pretty good at it. 8 of 11 challenges. It's kind of a delayed call by Torres.
And he struck him out on his slider. All 4 Ks on that patented slider for sale.
Just see very uncomfortable at bat. Watch the front hit fly super early. When it goes like that, you're almost always going to be over the ball and out in front.
George Springer doubled in the first inning, up in a big spot right now. Swings and misses at a fastball. Blue Jays are 1 for 5 so far with runners in scoring position tonight. The one hit, the infield hit by Clement right after the Springer double. In the air down the right field line, long run for Ronald Acuna Jr. That's foul just barely. Boy, could the Blue Jays have used that. That looked like it might have been 2 runs at that drop tip.
Junior really trying to make a play on it, just ran out of room. George blasted that fastball to the opposite field his first at bat. Sometimes that's what it takes against good pitchers like this. Obviously, you're seeing some very awkward swings from the Blue Jays. I wonder if those shadows, I mentioned it earlier, but they're playing tricks on the Blue Jays in terms of their ability to pick the pitches up. I mean, it is 99, so he's throwing fuel up there.
The 0-2, down and away. That's 99 from a unique angle and from a lefty. It's not a secret why this guy is bound for Cooperstown after he retires. Couple of different options for the Blue Jays to turn to. Connor Siebold and Chad Dallas both up in the bullpen. Swing and a high fly.
Ask Discord if there's anyone interested in a Show 6 Pick 3 format on the EBC platform.
The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid can get up to 776 kilometers on one tank, so you and everyone with you can go further. And with the turbocharged hybrid powertrain, everyday efficiency comes together with powerful performance without compromise. The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid. Ready for wherever you're going.
With Rogers, Canada's best 5G Plus network, I can share my favorite team with the world. We're live. Okay, what's up, guys? We have a wild episode for you today. I'm Nora. Can you say hi to my mom? Hi, Michael. Mom? You gotta hold the phone like way further from you. Sorry. Okay, guys, this is what we got to. We got no J's on there. So you made that. I did, yeah. And your viewership record on the stream. Oh, hey, look at that. I love it. Yeah, old record was 2. Want to meet all of you.
Shouldn't be that hard.
Confused by what the umpire is seeing? Confused by
was smoked at 112, as you see right there.
Yeah, with a low launch, especially with the low cut grass here at Truist Park. Pitch finishes middle down. He just drops the head right on it. You can see Straw starting off left of second base. That's a long way to run. He's able to cut it off, but with that angle, how deep it got, Harris is able to trot in to second base.
And he seemed quite happy about it. Dom Smith is up now. He'll take a strike. This could be Fluharty's last batter. Right-handed hitting Austin Riley up next. Although there is another lefty in Mike Yastrzemski after him. Was double barrel in the bullpen earlier. Siebold was up alongside Dallas, but now Chad Dallas the only one throwing.
Dom Smith comes into the game, 378 average with runners in scoring position. He turned himself into a really nice solid run producer for the Braves.
Check on second base by Fluharty, spinning around, but back in there is Harris.
This is kind of the cat and mouse game here. They've got left on left. You're probably trying to stiff punch and try and keep pitches away because Dom Smith's trying to get Harris the second over. To counter that, you try and go underneath with slow stuff away.
There is a sweeper, but it's still hit on the ground to second. McAdoo on it, and he'll throw to first. McAdoo does his job, but so does Dom Smith advancing the runner. And the Braves now have Harris to second and third with one out. That will be it for Mason Fluharty as John Schneider makes the point. Over to the bullpen, and the Blue Jays make a pitching change here with one out in the bottom of the second. It's going to be a debut when we come back. Stick with us on Sportsnet.
Worried your team isn't getting the right calls? We get it. Worried you're not making the right calls on insurance coverage? We got you. Get investments, insurance, and advice from someone who gets you.
Towels off. Is arm as big as fun?
Is it too big? It's Canadian Tire's big red sale. Should be big. I mean, it's a big sale. Is it?
The Summer Big Red Sale, on from June 4th to 11th.
At Wendy's, 10-piece nugget small combo is just $8.99. And when you get 100% all white meat Canadian seasoned chicken, plus fries, and a drink for just $8.99, yeah, that's just good economics.
More beginner photographers knew this about their camera because it's actually going to help.
Chad Dallas's family and friends in attendance. You can see there his wife, Madison, and just behind a friend right now, his daughter Blair, as well as mom Nancy. Tons of family there. Friends from Texas, friends from the University of Tennessee have all congregated here as Chad Dallas makes his major league debut. And all he's got to do now is try and punch out Austin Riley because there's one on third.
Shopify to sell
One
these
out.
cookies before they're done baking?
First pitch looks pretty good. There's a big breaking ball, the sweeper from Dallas to get ahead 0-1.
Oh, we just got an order. Someone ordered this batch.
A lot of breaking balls for the record.
Let's box these cookies up and print a shipping label with Shopify. Done. And just like that, I've started a business in my kitchen. Start your free trial at Shopify.com.
Four-seam curveball, sweeper sweeper, sinker, cutter.
Can I use Shopify to
He's
sell
got weapons to defend himself against different types of bad paths. Love
I'll
that.
list these cookies real quick and then ask a sidekick to let my customers know that a new batch is coming. Oh, we just got an order.
Swing and a miss.
This batch.
He's stuck to his bread and butter so far. It's 1 and 2.
Let's box these cookies up and print a shipping label with Shopify. Done. And just
See
like
how
that,
locked in right now Madison is.
Start your free trial
Quite a
at
little less focused on
Shopify.com.
what's going on.
Love it.
Can I use Shopify to sell these cookies before they're
The 1-2. And it's popped
I'll
up.
list these cookies real quick.
Into
and
foul
then
territory,
ask a
third
sidekick
base
to let my
side, and that
customers
will
know
work
that a
for
new
Chad
batch is
Nelson and
coming.
Blue Jays. 2
Oh, we just
down.
got
He's
an order.
first down to the big league level, and he keeps Harris on third.
You know, John Schneider told us before the game
Let's box these
he was
cookies
not
up and print a
scared.
shipping label with Shopify.
Full confidence that
Done.
Dallas is
Just
going
like
to
that,
come in
start
ready
your
to go.
business
And sure
in
enough, he puts him in
Start your free trial
very
at
difficult spot.
Shopify.com.
Runner third, less than 2. He just makes 4 quality sweepers
Can I use Shopify to sell these cookies
to
before
get his
they're
first
done?
major league out. Handled the pressure pretty well.
I'll list these cookies real quick and then ask a
Gotta finish
sidekick
this
to let my
inning off and
customers know that a new batch is
don't
coming.
exhale for a second.
Oh, we just got an order. Someone ordered this batch. All right.
It's an extra second here that actually broke the back of Austin Riley, so they get the three.
Wow, your hair is really thinning.
And now it'll be
Standing
a
has
right
proven to be
on left
healthier,
matchup
increases productivity,
with the veteran Mike
just looks
Yastrzemski.
cooler. Picture someone doing something heroic. Now, was he sitting or standing? Not counting FDR.
Dallas,
Every second you sit there is an hour
25-year-old
off your life.
from Orange, Texas.
I feel like you're in a suicide cult.
A fourth rounder in 2021 at the University of Tennessee.
Standing there. I tried one of those. I just gotta hurt the sweet spot. Hey guys, let's just all admit it, okay? Dwight's better than us. He had the guts to stop sitting, and he's never gonna go back.
For John Chadwell Dallas, he was on the Blue Jays top 30 prospects list in 2022 and 2024. He's 2-0. Froze there for a moment. Maybe you want to challenge it, but it was a little hot. 3 balls, no strikes.
All 7 pitches have been variations of breaking balls. 4 straight sweepers, and then 2 curveballs, and then a sweeper there.
Thank you so much.
Alright, we're gonna end the stream there. I think we got enough done for the website today. We got it live, we made some fixes, we added some stuff to the Pokédex, so good update, it's live, check it out, run your tournaments, we'll see you on the next one.